Hey, what's going on everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. Okay, this video is going to be a takeoff from the last video right before this. You can call this part 2. So this video is going to focus on the healing aspect of avoidance ability to heal. Okay, so like I said in the last video, I'm going to keep this really short, is one thing I noticed. I've been watching hundreds, and I mean hundreds and hundreds of videos on avoidance, from shorts to 10-minute videos to 20-minute to even longer. And the kind of shocking thing, the glaring thing that stood out to me was that the main thing is that all these videos are talking about how we need to interact with avoidant. Like, we suddenly need to shift and change everything for this small group of people on the planet. And it was such a weird thing. And the really odd thing was, it's like, I mean, I'm going to find some videos about, how does an avoidant heal from this? Nobody mentions it. Not one video that I have looked at has even remotely mentioned anything about, hey, avoidance, you've got a lot of toxic behaviors. You need some healing work to do. Now I'm persistent. After 1 month and then 2 months, I'm like, where's the videos talking about, hey, here's what you need to do to heal as an avoidant, etc., etc. And I didn't find any. So after a while, I'm like, well, no one's talking about the person or the people that need to do the healing work aren't even talked about. No one's even mentioning it. It's like, no, you're the one who needs to learn how to deal with us. Such a, it's like the world is backwards right now. I do think there's healing work on both sides of the fence. I think if you get involved with an avoidant, but then again, there's people that have what's called secure attachment, which they don't get thrown off by the avoidant for whatever reason. They just love the avoidant, whether, who knows what the reason is. And that's another question I said in my last video. I'm not going to go over in this one, but nobody answers the question or even mentions the thought about, why do people fall in love with avoidance so powerfully? It is such an intense love. Now, there are theories about this, etc., etc., about why do we date and get into relationships with them, but no one mentions the aspect of why is it so addictive. I don't even know if that's the right word. So I'm going to move on. That's not what this video is about. Alright, so in the last video I spoke of some things which I'm going to bring up in this video. I think I'm focusing too much on making this super short, so I'm going to kind of take a breath and then come back and just get going. So one of the realizations I had is none of these people, at least from the videos that I've found so far, okay, I obviously haven't found every single person who's talking about this online, but I realize these people aren't aware that there's actual healing modalities out there where you can actually heal and move on and get back into life the way you want to. The one thing that I've always believed and I have heard consistently, this is one thing I have heard, is, avoidance can heal, but no one ever talks about how. And the funny thing is, literally on every subject in the planet, whether it's marketing, whether it's therapy, whether it's personal development, whether it's building confidence, whether it's dating relationships, there's all kinds of videos on, hey, here's how you overcome this problem. Here's how you overcome this marketing problem. Here's how you heal this relationship wound or this abandonment wound, or here's how you communicate better. I mean, and people say, I've heard a lot of people say that, oh yeah, avoidance can heal, but nobody says how. And again, no one even talks about it, so I just find it kind of an odd subject. I find it even more odd because the focus is not on the avoidant healing, it's on you learning how to deal with their toxicity or their toxic behaviors. So I just find that absolutely bizarre. It is just like, man, okay, well, here's what they're gonna do, and it's just real toxic behavior, and how you need to deal with it. And it's just like really, like this is you're approaching things from the ass backwards way. If you can approach it from, hey, avoidant, like you need to heal this, because it's not like this is ever gonna end. They're just gonna continue this toxic, hurtful, and painful behavior with the people that they want to get close to.
I enjoy it much better when it's one with a friend.
Okay, so let me just start here. One of the things that I'm an NLP trainer and master practitioner, certified master hypnotherapist of Ericksonian hypnosis. I'm also a master practitioner of timeline therapy, Reiki, Huna, Pranic healing, and communication linguistics, etc., and a bunch of other things. So the one thing that really stands out is when you listen to these people, these YouTubers and people, and most of them, by the way, themselves are avoidants, and I would say like 90% or more are themselves avoidants. And they will tell you, like, here's the challenge. So on a deep core level, avoidants want to be loved. They want to connect with someone intimately, not just sexually, but on an emotional love level. They want to open up emotionally. They want to bond. They want to connect. They want to feel love intensely, because they deny themselves, because the way they were raised is, oh, love is weakness, stay strong, meaning stay closed. So avoidants go through this continual circle. There's one guy, I can't think of his name, but he created this way of looking at it. He calls it the death wheel, where they start out doing fine, and then they're not doing fine, and then they're lonely, and then they want to get in a relationship, and then they do get in a relationship, and in the beginning everything is amazing. It is amazing. And then the next step, they're like, wait a minute, what am I doing? So they're freaking out, going, holy shit, I opened up emotionally to this person. And then they go, oh no, I'm not supposed to do that, and they get scared and they're afraid they're going to get hurt, and then they take off and run, and they literally will ghost you and abandon you. Because one of the things about avoidance is when they begin to open up and feel your love, and or just open up to you emotionally and let you in, they go through, I just lost the phrase, hold on. They essentially have a panic attack because they have abandonment wounds, okay? So when they were kids growing up, like, whenever they opened up to their parents, the parents kind of turned their back on them or never opened up emotionally, so they have this like yearning or long standing abandonment issue, and so that fear comes up, and then they run. So they do this constant, they go through the cycle, so they run, and they're in this panic phase, and then it's like a relief. So that would be the next phase, okay? And now they're feeling really good. So like one thing they'll tell you, when an avoidant first leaves you, you're going to notice, like, wow, they're doing really, really well, because to them, like, the pressure is off. They don't have to worry about someone hurting them emotionally, abandoning them, because they have a really deep abandonment wound issue. And the one thing you continually hear, I'm getting to my point here, is they constantly do this back and forth thing. So once they feel the relief, they feel good, blah, blah, blah. But then the next phase comes, and they're like realizing, wow, I'm all alone, I'm lonely. So before that phase, they were feeling really good about being independent and being alone, because that's another big thing, is they were raised to be independent. Love is bad, love is weakness, and then be strong, and then be independent. So they run away from the abandonment fear. They run away from getting hurt emotionally by closing up and going into their intellectual brain and disconnecting from their right emotional brain. They are connected. They do have an open door. They open and close constantly, so that they do have access, whereas a narcissist does not at all. So essentially, they run away, and then they close their heart. Now they feel safe. They don't have to worry about, another thing is they don't want people to need them, because their whole life, like their family members somehow used them and needed them and their needs never got met. So they want to escape that. So if you start to seem needy, or if they perceive something as needy, even if it's not at all, they're like, yep, I'm out of here. So are you starting to see a pattern here? There's a pattern of They deeply want a relationship. They deeply want to be involved. They want to feel loved. They want to be loved. And then the minute they open up, boom, they're gone. And it's in so many different ways, like they're out of there. And they'll close up emotionally and they'll disconnect from you completely. So they have this, I call it a yo-yo effect. It's like they go towards and then they run away. Essentially what this is, it's two different values. They have a value where they want to be loved, and that's called a towards value. And they also have an away from value where they don't want to get hurt, and that's a really strong value. So these would be what we call two conflicting values. So if you've ever seen someone get very rich or very successful and then they lose it all and they go all the way back down to poverty and then they go all the way back, they're having a similar effect. They basically probably have an away from value, a very strong away from poverty. So they work really, really, really hard to get away from poverty. But the problem is this: once they get far enough away, they lose their motivation. So then they lose all the money, they get lazy, blah, 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 and then next thing you know, they're dirt poor broke, and they're getting closer and closer to poverty, and like, oh shit, so when they get close, they could really see it, they get really motivated, and they work really hard, and they put things together, and boom, they're back on top. But then they lose the motivation because it's far away. Well, this is like the yo-yo effect that an avoidant is going through. Alright, I'm just going to say, here's my point. This is what we call either a values conflict or a parts conflict, where the one part wants to go towards and the other one wants to run away. So now you're getting pulled apart by two competing parts that literally won't let you have what you want. So now you can't have what you want and you can't get away from what you don't want. So you're going back and forth from it. Now, as someone who's trained in parts conflict and NLP and Erickson and hypnosis, etc., I'm like, oh, see, as I'm listening to these videos, I'm like, well, so when are we going to get to the healing part about healing the avoidance? Nobody even mentions it. It's like, no. It's not about them. It's about you. You need to change. You need to adjust to the psychotic behavior. It's actually not psychotic. I shouldn't say that. But this crazy making behavior, we'll call it. So as I'm listening to all these videos and people describing this and also watching this, someone go through this themselves, I'm like, you just have a parts conflict. That's all this is. This is not like parts integration is one of the funnest, not only for me, but for you. It's one of the funnest. It's like when you see the parts integrate, when it physically happens, you have an emotional, physical, you feel it, if an emotional shift inside, and it comes to completion, like contentment. All of a sudden you're like, wow, and you can breathe better. You have a physical, visceral experience of it. Now, when I first learned this technique, it was a little bit complicated. I was kind of intimidated by it, but it became like, literally, this is my favorite technique because it's so easy to do. It really is a step-by-step technique. It's a process, and it is probably, at this point, I'm going to say it's probably the most enjoyable technique that I love to work with my clients. So here's my overall message, is saying, like, this is just one thing that stands out to me when it comes to avoidance, and no one's talking about this. Not only that, but no one's even mentioning, hey, they've got part conflicts going on. Like, no one's even saying it because none of these people are aware of it. So it dawned on me over watching all these videos, like, oh, they don't know that what's going on. They don't know there's a parts conflict going here. They don't even know there's a technique called parts integration. Now, the second thing I would do, it might be the first, but it depends on the individual. We will then take you on your timeline. So I do timeline therapy. We'll take you back to the first experience of this, and we'll have you heal that. And that's a process too. I'm not going to explain it here, but we have memories come up, and I'll ask you a series of questions, and it brings up the issue of what's going on when that happened. And boom, once you get it, it heals. Then we'll bring you back to now, and then we maybe do the parts integration, but usually we do the parts integration first and then go back. So it just depends on your personal situation. Now, here's the deal. I don't want you to think that this is only for avoidance. No, I'm just using this on avoidance because no one's talking about the healing of avoidance. And as I'm listening to all these videos for the last 2, 3, 4 months, I'm like, okay, that's a parts parts conflict, just do an integration there. You'll be fine. You may need timeline therapy with that. Yep, you can need. Here's another technique. It's called reframing. So, all right, I'll give you an example. One of the beliefs that avoidants are taught is that love is weakness. That is the biggest lie on the planet. Weak people can't open up to their heart because they're too weak to do it. Why? Because they're afraid. See, a lot of people might like, oh, even avoidants might like, well, I've got boundaries. Well, ghosting someone and going complete radio silence where you have no contact, that's not boundaries. That's disappearing. Boundaries is when you can be with people and still have your boundaries and be comfortable in public with them and be like, yeah, no, that's not acceptable. That's not okay. You got boundaries and you can communicate them effectively. I just made a video on this 2 videos ago. Maybe it was, I think it was 2 videos ago or 3 videos ago. So there's another thing is learning, like, yeah, they need to actually learn what's called healthy boundaries. See, healthy boundaries does not mean completely disappearing for 6 days to 6 weeks to 6 months and processing this. Healthy boundaries is being able to be in the moment with someone and still having a healthy boundary where communication can flow in between the two of you. If you have to completely disappear and go radio silent for 6 days or 5 days or 10 days or 6 weeks or whatever, that means you don't have any boundaries. And that's why you disappear, is because like when you're with people, like they just kind of push you to and fro. And that's one thing about avoidance is they don't like to argue, so they don't really stand up for themselves. So basically, if someone says do this, they do it, and then after a while, like, yeah, I don't like this, I feel too much pressure, I feel controlled, and boom, they disappear. Another thing about dismissive avoidance is they are very controlling, and if they're not in control, they'll ghost you again, they'll be gone. So that's not actual control. You're not in control of yourself. You're trying to control the other person, which is not healthy. Now, what I just mentioned are what we would call in NLP strategies. So the way you deal with pressure is, well, you just disappear, you go radio silent, you don't return calls, you don't return texts, you just isolate yourself, you hide from people, you lose contact. Well, that's a strategy, but is it really getting you what you want? If it's not, then that's not an effective strategy. A word I use, please forgive me, is that's a shittiest strategy. It's not helping you to get what you want out of life. And that is what this is all about. This is why I got into this work, because to me, you have to live life to the fullest and live a meaningful life that you absolutely enjoy. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect, but if your life is like you're constantly avoiding people, you're running away, that's not a meaningful life. You're not feeling the full connection with people. And if right there that phrase full connection with people scares you, you've got some issues. And once we heal them and clear them, boom, enjoying. See, you can be with people and still have your space and still have your freedom, and at the same time still feel a strong bond and emotional connection with someone to where you can feel that intimate love together. Life, love, and relationships are not this black or white thing where you're either being controlled or you're not. I promise you, you can learn how to connect with people in an open, spacious way to where you still have your autonomy, yet you're still loved and cared for by people, and you can find that special person where you can be intimate with. This illusion, and it is an illusion, that, oh, if you get close to someone, then you're losing yourself and you're losing your space and your freedom and your emotional no. Now, you might be, if you meet a control freak, which is what happened when you're being raised, like that's what happened. You were probably raised by some parents, or maybe got into a deep relationship with a control freak who took all your freedom away. So one of the things you're going to have to notice is boundaries. And if someone's trying to control you, well, just walk away. Alright, so what have we already talked about? We've talked about a technique called parts integration. We've talked about strategies, and another one was reframing. Okay, reframing is a technique where, okay, one of the beliefs that avoidants are taught is that love is weakness and that you got to be strong, you got to close the door and be independent, right? Well, anything, okay, every word that we know, we give a meaning to. Every experience that we have, we give a meaning to. If you connect a negative meaning to something, it's going to block you. It's going to keep you stuck. So we find beliefs such as, oh, love is weakness, which is not true at all. And here's the thing. that does not support you. And that's probably the real word I'm looking for: support and empowering you. We can reframe words and experiences to empower you. So we've got parts integration, we've got reframing the meaning that you've given to words and experiences in life. We've got timeline therapy, we've got strategies, strategy elicitation. That's a series of techniques, a little bit more, actually it's quite a bit more complicated, but we can help to find out what are you doing, and is it in number one, what are you doing? And number two, is it truly getting you what you want? Now, when I say what are you doing, it's usually an unconscious step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Like you do a visual external search in your brain, and then you do an auditory internal check inside your body, and then you do a kinesthetic internal check. And so it's a series of unconscious visual, auditory, kinesthetic, auditory, digital, like a series. It's like a pattern. And I have to figure out, elicit this and go, okay, what is your pattern? Like, oh, I see what's going wrong here. Sometimes strategies are pretty damn obvious, but when you change them, you got to go into that step-by-step process, and then we make a shift inside and make a radically, different belief change, reframe, parts conflict, and then we shift the strategy, and all of a sudden you're having healthy, loving, bonding relationships where you're not living in fear, because that's essentially what avoidant is doing. Everything they're doing is almost like an away from. They're running away from what they want. Or they're afraid, okay, by the way, I want to mention this again. This is not just for avoidance. I've been doing this with, I've coached CEOs and executives at Hewlett Packard back at the late 90s, early 2000s. I've coached people who are worth $300 million. I coached a guy last year who was, what do they call it, like one of the top people, executives, but it's actually above that, the controlling partner of a multi-billion-dollar corporation last year. I've worked with people where there's professional athletes, mothers, fathers, people with phobias. By the way, if you have a phobia, the phobia cure is really easy. It should take about an hour to an hour and a half, maybe even less than that. So if you're listening to this video going, man, that kind of sounds like me. I'm kind of afraid to do what I want, afraid to make money, afraid to start a business, holding back, you feel stuck. Like, this isn't just for avoidance. This is for anybody. Well, the reason why I made this video is because I notice as I've been listening to these videos, I'm getting really frustrated. Like, well, when do we get to the therapeutic side of stuff? They never do, because I think on some level they don't think that people can actually heal and change, because they're not aware of these teachings, of these technologies, of these techniques. If you are stuck emotionally, if you are hurt emotionally, regardless of whether you're avoidant or not, we can absolutely shift that and heal these emotions. I'm really, really good at the work that I do. I specialize in emotional healing. That is my core base of what I do with everyone, even in the dating relationship coaching. Alright, get a hold of me if you're looking for some healing work, some coaching, and getting on in your life. Life can be awesome, and you can make it much more meaningful. Alright guys, if you like this video, please click subscribe, click that bell. Go ahead and click the like button, make a comment if you like, and if you want, you can go and make a donation. There's a PayPal link right there in the description box. Alright guys, God bless you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.